live stream. Is it test? Blue Yeti. There's people in it? You mean our people?
That's another justice.
We are live.
So much when it gets cuts off. It's like whatever. The people who are watching the stream get a lesser experience. But yeah, whatever.
I could make a joke.
I was gonna say,
It's weird. I have this. So what happens if I slideshow this? Is that correct, or is that?
Yeah. I mean, as long as it's readable.
Yeah, this is.
What's that?
There's a very big visual delay.
Oh, we know.
Yeah,
that.
there was a
30-second delay
Delay,
yesterday. Remember?
Oh,
Yeah. And I don't know. Can we? Is that change? Oh, and we don't have to start
set up
pressing.
all the settings and it didn't make a difference.
It did make a difference.
let me
Okay.
see what sound is
Did you? Oh, did you guys? Oh, each one is a separate. Oh, so the German one is separate.
That's okay. She has
I think that's not going to be
I can't tell
a
because.
problem because then we're going to have to shift.
Jeff.
I mean,
Whatever.
could just have them on separate tabs. And
Yeah.
yeah, she hasn't put in
I
her
guess that'd
phone.
probably be fine. Okay, so I'll get back to show eliminate. Wait.
Oh, that's a nice.
Really consistent. Quiz 1 and quiz 2.
Check out the screen.
Quiz 3, I just don't know what happened.
Like as long as it's in there.
But one thing I am concerned about is when I do Q&A, are we going to move the mic physically over
We
there?
can. We can if you want.
Is that going to be like a rough process?
That's a great question. Did I bring? Where's the?
It's over here.
Okay, so I do have. I do have another couple cords. Yeah. So if we just hook those up now, then they'll get us better off. Bring the mic over there. And it might do something weird right now.
Yeah, he's just.
But better that there's problems now.
So maybe I've never gotten that. A lot of them are 100. Thank you.
Jesus, 2000.
Yeah.
What is
For
that?
your, but I think that's all I'm sorry.
Is that, oh, that's fine. That's fine. I don't have to have an exact number.
It was picking up John smacking his hand over here. Yeah.
That's like 2%. That's 2%.
I just love when the window's not full screen, it like skews it across.
Yeah, that's. I don't know how well that works.
It's just gotta be full screen, or the window's gotta be full screen. That's
Does it actually factor into your grade?
Biggest cheerleader for game jams. Is this enough? You think with just one, or should we do one more extender? Just
So, is this.
not for the whole time, but for the QA for the
Oh.
QA part, we might want to be able to move the microphone over to whoever's presenting.
What's the mic up there though?
Having people come up might be easier.
Right, but I'm just saying for the stream, which mic is going to the stream?
That mic's going to the stream, and so during the presentation, it's going to stay here.
Oh, okay.
We're not moving it to the table.
Okay, so for just Q&A, okay.
Yeah, but we also could do Q&A, like have the person who's fielding the question just.
Yeah, I think that would be fine. Or we can literally just pass that.
Might be good enough that.
Yeah.
I mean, hey Emily, tell me about level design.
like somehow 2 cents.
In review. Tell me a little more. Yeah.
it sounds really bad.
I mean, it's definitely picking you up. It might sound terrible, but I think if we just put it mid tables during the QA, it'll be fine.
Yeah,
I think it'll be all right.
yesterday.
Really fine. But for the,
You just want the people in the stream to be able to hear you.
yeah, and for presentation,
Try talking to
we
both,
should get as
see what
close to each other as.
And then Q&A, we'll just have our gameplay video on loop
You
during
can do that and have it
It
muted.
doesn't sound like there's any.
Our last slide is the video, so.
That would be fine. What's that?
We didn't do that.
I mean, you can if you want.
Because I was thinking, like, we have the trailer in the beginning, right? But how do we show them a little more without spending like a full 5 minutes showing them the whole thing? Because going through the whole presentation, they'll probably have like no idea what we're talking about until you get to the end, and then they see the whole playthrough.
Can you punch it?
Add that in only easily because we already have the video. Start presentation. I mean, it looks slightly different now. No, I don't want to watch the trailer I made over and over again. It's
Right, yeah, good point. Yeah, do you want to throw it in there?
Yeah, I can do it right now.
Okay. Oh, that's right. You don't need this computer to do it. Haha, how about that? Alright, cool.
Alex, is your girlfriend coming?
What's that?
Is your girlfriend coming?
She's at work.
Oh, that's late. Down the street? I can go kidnap her if you want.
It is, yeah.
Where does she work?
Quiet.
Just the Dunkin's up in Munster.
In Leominster?
Yeah.
I thought you said
I'm
on
not
Main
sure what it
Street,
sounds
down
like,
the
like
street.
with somebody talking about, like,
I'm not going to
I'm assuming it's gonna pick it up.
Yeah, I'm not going to Leominster.
I'm not sure.
Gas is expensive.
Yes, I'm well aware. It went up 10 cents a gallon. Yeah,
I know.
Again, there's a station all the way here. So it's like 320 something.
I have a mask where I want to step on my
It was
shirt.
roughly less than like 3 hours.
Oh, we have 5 people watching.
Hey, nice. Oh man, so they're watching me donk around with this. Well, at least we're not recording yet.
Windows security.
Jeff, you said you set up a blackboard, right? For
No, there's no
you
blackboard.
didn't?
Just look in the documents channel,
Okay.
and there are links.
All right.
Yep.
The idea is after this is all done, we all go to studio basically.
Yeah, and oh yeah, and I gotta call in the pizza shortly.
Short mix. What's your thing?
I don't remember half of it.
You have to sign a form.
Right.
I printed it out, so you just need to sign it like when you get there.
Really, I'm the only one who wants to do
Yeah. That's something we need to talk about when we go to studio.
what?
Is that information about it?
Actually, no.
No, we can figure it out. I mean, if there's literally only one person that really wants to wait till Wednesday, like John and I can just do yours on Wednesday. But we're trying to get it like, or if there's like more of a critical mass for one time, it might be nicer to do it as one
Alberto's
shot.
having the meeting Monday at 2, so we'll be there Monday.
Oh, cool.
So that's why.
So earlier Monday makes sense. And also, we kind of figured that some people would just want to get stuff out of the way.
But when? So Wednesday might also.
Yeah. Podcast thing's Wednesday, so some of you guys are probably gonna be in the studio Wednesday too. So either way is fine. It was just, between me and John, we just both have so much stuff going on next week. It's like those are the only two reliable chunks of time that we both had free. So he's got 2 exams on Tuesday, and I've got one on Wednesday morning, and I've got a bunch of stuff Monday afternoon. So
Where
it's just
exactly is it?
I'm gonna just.
Well, so I'm just gonna explain everything that the guy sent me
When is that?
tonight.
That's just beef like bread. Sausage.
I'm not watching. Of course I know.
I never used Twitch, Sean. It's like it's better than its terminal.
I'm reporting this live stream as spam. Look, there it is. Give it a 30 seconds.
No. Oh my God. Literally.
It's reporting it. Yeah, when I'm done talking, I'll just if you want to. I suggest everyone look at their slides. You have a phone, right?
It's on battery.
What are you, like a 17-year-old girl
Yes.
that doesn't know how to charge her phone? Are you
Charge their phone.
Alright, which team member you are valuable?
See,
You're one
I'm
of five.
independent from that giant brick of a battery that they have to use and carry around with them
Why you
because they
have-
can't
why
hold a
don't value
charge.
The other team.
No.
Huh? I'm just gonna give it unacceptable for everybody. Yeah.
Run amok, let us stray.
Alright, well, let's see. Okay, this is what I do here. Do I have to violate myself?
Hello.
Okay, where?
Hi.
You. Oops. Oh, we got 9 people watching. Yo, what up to the 9 people watching, including myself? I know. The other microphone's right here as well.
Yes, that's all.
I think they can hear that.
I don't think so.
So it's
All right, so before I call the pizza order in, the people who put in Buffalo as an icon, were you being funny or were you saying Buffalo chicken pizza is a yes?
I was saying
I'll eat it.
yes.
I'll
Yes.
eat that. I mean,
The more variety, the better.
that's a real deal.
I
As long
agree.
as there's blue cheese.
What's that?
You can get blue
There
cheese.
should be. You want me to go all variety and get one of each thing, or should I like go heavier on the cheese, the cheese pizza? Nobody remarked with cheese, right? So I don't need to get any cheese pizzas. Just get like actual flavored yummies.
pepperoni.
Cool. All right.
There's enough vegetarian.
I'll make sure there's a bunch of the veggie ones, the 2 veggie ones. Did you like both of the veggie options?
I like mushrooms, so.
Me too. This
Why not
the
just get a
mushroom
bunch
and
of
spinach one looked really super awesome. So
Why not just get a bunch of them with like 1 or 2 toppings?
I could do that. I mean, I kind of like the
It's
more
hard for
special
people to
ones.
dislike it.
Actually, just get what people want. Just make sure there's enough for the sole vegetarian.
Yeah.
People are gonna go out to the vegetarian.
Right. Just cans gonna just-
No! Oh, my friend's like, oh.
Does that make you feel good
Don't eat all my.
No,
So then I have
sir, you cannot have any pepperoni.
I bet you will.
How do you mute this mic?
No, I'll mute it. Give me a second. There's a sledgehammer.
Oh, it's basically, yeah. The individual retrospective.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Do you guys know if a company logo is allowed to be a GIF?
Do we,
GIF?
like, is
Or,
this
yeah.
required? Like, it says like,
Unless he wants to do
is there anything you would like adjust?
No, because I'm thinking it would be funny if our logo
If I
did
don't
the
have
stick
any-
bug meme.
If I don't have it, to adjust to a certain class.
Well, I'm not asking Sean to do that.
Yeah.
And game study seminar is fine. Like, there's nothing I want to adjust about it. I guess I'll just ask Jeff.
Invincible?
Yeah.
Until I want it.
Pretty much.
Oh no, my parents put this on their TV. God damn it.
I'm tired of that.
Their giant
I
72
have
inch
enough peer
TV.
evaluation.
Now get over here and stay in the camera view.
Wait, John, talk into that other mic.
This one?
Yeah, talk into that one.
Hello. Does it echo? Does it echo?
Don't know yet.
We gotta wait another 30 seconds.
Oh, you want me to still talk? Thanks. Are we good?
Wait.
Sounds fine. It's all epic. It's playing out live.
Good. Ask what?
Yeah, well, that's fine. I thought it was gonna like
It's
echo
actually
back.
echoing
It's
so we both
fine.
have it open.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay, I was like, wait a minute. Alright, it's good. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was gonna feedback into the other one,
So,
but it's fine.
no.
I thought that was on
It's weird. It's a sensitive mic. It's picking us up.
No, its storage was full. But this thing can run a game. My laptop can't do that.
Wait, so this is gonna run the game?
No. I'm saying in terms of power, this is great, but it had like no storage. So can we get everyone to sit in the order presenting? So
I don't want first, but that's
Ross, it goes.
I mean, my slides are kind of long. I tell myself every time.
What?
It's
What is it?
Ross, Alex, Sean, Penn, Aaron, Emily, and then I go last. So,
Well, you're gonna be up there first to do the introduction.
Right.
We
I'll be the one talking.
We have a bunch of like picture stuff right before we get into our individual stuff. So you're gonna be narrating all that?
Team member. Your evaluation.
Suppose so.
I'll evaluate.
And then I'll have this over here in case we need like reference to see what's up next.
We have 25 minutes before the announcements.
How much time?
25 minutes. Something like that, actually. Actually, you're also wrong because it's more like 28 minutes. No, that's wait a minute. I went it's more like 22 minutes. It's more like 22 minutes. That's what I meant.
Alex, can you just move over a line and then everyone move over one? We do.
We just, it's a matter of
Sean,
choice.
sit here. Oh wait, no. Penn and then Aaron.
Cough, cough.
And then Emily. And then.
Yeah. Brothers.
Yeah.
So you walked in the morning at like, I must hit you with a car.
I wish you fucking did. Wow. It's gonna be on
Now
stream.
We are live, people.
That's on stream.
I know.
Yeah. You really
I don't like lower
Jimmy
side.
didn't take it.
I did. I just waved to you, but I was like,
I'll leave him alone.
yeah.
Oh, you poor fools.
One semester was enough.
But like,
One semester.
I haven't tested it on this computer before. It does not do well.
Does not do well.
Does not compute. There we go. We muted the stream.
Oh, that's so freaking stupid.
Yo, people down on Black Street. That's what I'm talking about.
Optimization class.
Yeah.
I want to see if we can make a mobile build. That'd be fun. Like,
Hello.
Alright. Sorry, no.
You
I mean, we can.
in the flannel jacket. What's up?
That guy?
Well, the main menu is great.
The menu looks
Give me my frame.
Give me my frame.
Honestly, like, I'm counting on.
Where's the poster?
Okay, so this is like
It's right there.
Can we put this like in the middle? Below? Block you out.
Yeah,
Can we put this here? Or not block you guys?
I don't expect it.
I don't think.
I've seen that video
Oh,
before.
okay.
Yeah, we can keep this going. That's cursed.
It doesn't.
I can't find the stream.
It should. When I was using it, it was working. But unless it changed, got changed.
Sometimes the frame rate on my job when I put it in my home computer.
My dad's like, I like to order pepperoni
It's
pizza.
whatever. It's running at 60, but it's not
Is
a
this
big.
the most recent one that's on here? 1 hour ago?
Here we go.
Yes.
What is this? Secure the baguette?
That was already the game jam.
Okay.
Oh yeah, they were saying they were able to break your game, Tanner.
Oh.
Yeah, they were saying that.
Oh.
Everyone in the media said it.
It was a fun game, but they were able to
I
break it.
don't know.
Good.
How do you break collect?
26 frames. Oh, look at that.
Probably all the viewers are all us on their phones.
Well, because I'm on my phone right now.
Other than Ross.
I don't think I can get past the first level.
It's me. That's me right there.
Because I remember someone was playing at 30 frames.
You know, everyone downvote the video.
No.
The jumps aren't possible at 30 frames. I don't know why.
Somebody said one
Even if
row.
I kind of-
That was me.
Oh, the textures.
What?
Ooh, I don't know. Does that say Alex Dinsdale?
No, I'm logged in on my personal Gmail.
Yeah,
I think.
it's not possible. I've already put
It's
this
weird to
on.
me
I
how
don't know what else I did.
Anthony.
I sound incredibly different via the video. At least to me. Oh, I already know what I sound like. It's gonna be funny. I think we're gonna talk.
Wow, we have like zero, we have 3 people that are not in.
If I put it at,
Oh,
God, I'm not even.
Yeah, that's good. And I'm sure that a bunch of people are gonna.
Oh no.
They're gonna watch.
No, when they watch,
Oh,
they put it
yeah,
up on their
that's
72-inch TV.
Nice.
And it's like, oh boy.
That's awesome! That's great.
I don't know.
I have it muted right now.
That's fine.
I can't read it.
We should got like a tablecloth or something.
No, it's correct.
What, the infestation?
Yeah.
Don't move it. My hands are freezing right now.
Oh, hello. It crashed.
Wait, what? Wait, this crashed? Or your game crashed?
Well, you're the one who was saying you were.
I tried to load the game and it crashed.
Let me try.
Oh, sweet Star Wars should work. I was playing it out.
It's when I set the display mode to
These
like.
games are garbage. Who
Oh.
said that?
Let me try it.
Yeah, I see you, Aaron.
Whoa. Wait, that's in the slideshow?
It is too.
No way.
I know why it's doing that.
Okay, it's because I loaded a corrupt save. It's good.
What?
This is still on. Oh, wait a minute.
All F4. I know why it's doing that. Because
Oh shit.
No, is it still?
Oh, the frame rate like popped up.
I mean, went up.
Yeah. That was so weird. It's now at 50 frames.
How do I?
It's still not playable though. And it's like on this road.
Uh-oh.
Wait. Sarah, this is a really weird thing, but let me save it and show you what I did. Oh god, that actually.
Yo, why is there so many saves in this Anthony?
So I set.
Yeah.
I set
We're all
the
just
display
dogging
mode
on the game right now.
Oh, I think that's why. I think. Oh, the display mode is right. It's more noticeable on Sprite.
Oh, there is sound. I thought I muted it.
Interesting.
What?
But it made the frame rate.
There we go.
Now it's
I thought we were muted. Yeah.
It's
No, there's totally sound.
No, I muted this.
Now it's on.
I didn't know where because I.
That's my name.
It's got the,
Now it's
what
muted.
the fuck do they call that?
How do you do that?
It wasn't muted before. Now it's muted. No, it was. Well, you press the gun, it can't go off.
Oh, never mind.
You want me to run it at 165?
30
Let's do it.
seconds.
That's a really number.
Yeah, it is right there.
Is there an unlimited
I don't know this
rate?
Oh my god.
It's not over here.
Oh my god.
That's fine.
What?
Look, it's spinning.
No, it's not.
Well, it was already bad. Now it's worse.
Hello. Looks like you blurred out. Like,
All right, everybody's
like,
all
not
ready.
safe for work. I turned this like extra quality all the way down.
Yeah, it's because
Oh,
his
God.
are kind of bad, so I got even more.
I wanted to
Press
fix
is so
that,
hard.
but it was because of Eric redid Spinner's rig, and what you can do with the rig is you can like set the individual what the hell is it called? You could set the quality of each piece of the sprite basically, and it was set to really low for everything.
Oh, cool.
No.
No, it's over. Go home.
Sorry. Aaron, did you really send it to a different account to post that?
I only have one account.
Then who said that?
Oh my god, it's so dark.
I don't understand.
Never help.
What do you mean?
I don't know anymore.
I tried. I think it's because this is a 2K.
Wait, is your display one of those? Yeah, you have a weird display
It's
on
like
here.
a 2K.
Yeah, that's why.
It doesn't look very good
Yeah.
if it's above 10.
Everywhere now, you can get your phone up.
You have your controller?
Oh.
No, just go work something.
Wait a while.
You don't know if Andy Cunningham ever posted the pictures that he took of our students? Remember when the photographer came to his studio?
Yeah. You still put that water bottle down in there?
I'm checking, I'm scouring.
Oh yeah, that'll get fixed. That'll get fixed in the summer.
She said it's, where is it? It's on Instagram.
They didn't post everybody.
Most of the time,
They mostly posted
Oh, they did one of like, yeah, they did one of Sean and Eric, but no, but they didn't do it, he didn't post any of like the, oh, wait a minute. That's nice. He didn't post a group photo.
Yeah, we added more at the beginning.
I mean, he must have a database of that somewhere, but, oh yeah, no, here's the one of, yeah.
This
Okay.
isn't playable. I'm stuck.
What are you doing?
What did you do?
Yeah. I mean, this is,
It's not playable at 30 frames.
yeah.
You can't play it.
Don't play it then.
Have you never played it on your laptop?
I have, it just doesn't play well because of my laptop's not good.
Minimum requirements.
This was a while ago, but I had some trouble without a controller, just trying to use the keyboard.
Yeah.
You played it recently? It feels good on keyboard.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It feels fast.
Keyboard feels almost better actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to.
We had a soft lock with mouse and keyboard recently. We just fixed that.
I think we just need to do an optimized implementation process somewhere. Do the
You already played this. Gotta skip that dialogue.
Jeff, are you gonna come down here and introduce?
I will, yeah. No, you're take it away, John.
I'm not sure how I feel about that. I haven't recently read
I was just looking for, I was trying to see if I could find one of the, like group images that one of the group photos that the photographer took, but, and to just throw it into the slideshow, but
Wait, it doesn't bounce off you anymore.
I don't think.
Before he fixed it.
The one on my back.
The drop was. Does it? Okay.
Why is it red now?
I just love that little piece right down there. The one that's for you. You didn't even see it. Go back.
It's actually
Yeah, no, it is. That is free. Can't see it. You can only see it when you get the collectible.
Oh, that's the thing, right?
Yeah. The freaking percentage on the side just like floated out real hard, but then it was fine. I think it was because my refresh rate on my the screen is so high.
It went from like 11 to 12 to 11 to 12 to 11 to 12 and maybe and then
Yeah, it's 30 seconds now.
whoa,
It shouldn't load backwards. Like it can't even happen. It shouldn't be able to happen.
it's probably the same stuff that's been remembered in those there's a little bit more
I want to see if this part works. So I've already tested this a few times, but I save and load. Well, because the fade works. Then it bugged out for a second and it loads. I don't know. What? You like that? You think so? Alright, well you can thank Chris for that. I had different opinions, but the way he did it was good enough.
Oh, the lighting?
Yeah, the lighting in the tree was good. No, like initially when we were doing it, like, we had different ideas of how to do it. Oh, that's so much better than they miss it now. Or not miss it, it's like transparent. The sap. You got rid of that sound, didn't you? Right.
Oh, the drip sound?
It wasn't broken, I found it and I saw it, and it's just that the prefab wasn't dragged in. The prefab version of that.
the camera
No,
yeah no I shouldn't play this down
no, it won't play it now. Yeah, one of the.
Wait, so do you have to
No, it'll just stay.
John, imagine being so short that the camera can't see you.
Imagine.
Yeah.
So technically it's still the same shape. I know what you're saying, like save it back.
I just noticed how good the team looked, and I'm like, wait, where's John? Oh, he's short.
Actually, theoretically, that would be
Yeah.
No, but he also
One thing that's annoying is like if I select that file name, which I'm not going to with the controller, and I can't touch it.
Oh yeah.
That's just stupid.
to save a life if you use it like you saved my life on the
I just.
Oh yeah, no, that makes sense to do that. Sorry.
have you seen them? And then use them for real?
No, that totally makes sense. Gotcha.
I selected it for a second.
I'm using this as a reference, just to
Oh.
Oh, did you log in on the other system so you can see it, or?
No, I'm just using my laptop to see
You know
what's
that,
Yeah, the, I hate the
Oh,
box.
just in slideshow. Oh, yeah.
So like,
It's like black and white. It doesn't really matter.
I like saving though. I mean, like, it just makes sense.
Just have it set up on them, you don't have to actually change the name.
I was supposed to add, I was supposed to add controls, like what do, but you don't know that actually. It's like usually the action.
Oh, there you
It's like, no, I'm glad that I added that because honestly that was annoying. Oh yeah, like these settings. It's like there was no other control. It's because when you're selecting them,
It kind of looks like
when you're just getting shot, yeah. Back, you know, it goes to the other element over there. You have to like try to see the link, grab it. You press A to like grab the slider and then press A to confirm the slider. Oh, this part? So it doesn't actually auto scroll down either. I was gonna try to like do that, but that it just wasn't worth my time.
You couldn't make it like a longer list on there.
I could make it a longer list automatically, and maybe not automatically, but yeah, not automatically. I think I have to define the list. But it is still is like the reach down. The blue? It should be. Oh, it does. You can see it.
Who modeled the gun?
Yeah.
Is that you, John?
Huh?
You modeled the gun?
Yeah, so the blue does actually.
Sean made the.
Yeah, it's hard to notice on the home
You
screen,
save
but
your
it does
questions
print
to
off.
the end.
The hash is totally for the texture count.
Okay, Emily.
Hard to tell. Like,
I don't know if the chat will play
it
full.
basically
A piece of junk does not
would
look
actually
accurate.
get all the information.
iPhone.
Fully in-game turns it like
Or no, it's 6.
How? You know how like I don't know if you've ever gone into Unity project settings. But you go into project settings and you
Does this work?
you know there's quality settings. That's what it is. You can edit all that function. Just say like there's literally a conditioning class called quality settings. Quality settings, and then you set the quality settings. A certain number, like 0, you have certain settings. So when we go into optimization,
Totally.
I'm going to change those a little more drastically because low is not really it is low, but like not all the textures get changed that low. Textures and stuff like that. It's low on some that's way different than yeah, it's pretty good. How did we go to lunch? I don't even remember being at one yet. We were at 1. I don't know, because all the saves I Eventually, like what? glide to the left with the older because you can glide, and then keep gliding, and eventually go farther from the background and find yourself on a blank space.
Unmute. Hello? One sec, let me just start recording and see if this does what I think it'll do. Also, the gain, yeah. All right. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? I probably don't even need the microphone. Can you hear? Hopefully, people listening to the YouTube stream can hear us as well. So we'll find out. So I'm Jeff Warmoth. I'm the coordinator of game design. Some of you may know me. This is my colleague John.
I'm John Amakala. I'm also a faculty member in game design.
And so we were the faculty for this year's Game Studio Capstone. For those of you that don't know, I think most of you in the room do know about Capstone, but for those of you that don't, well, apparently my saved slides didn't come through, but it doesn't matter. So Game Studio Capstone is one of the professional capstone options that students in the game design major can take. It's a 12-credit, full-time, pre-professional experience that attempts, as much as we can in an academic environment, to mirror what happens in a professional game studio, and as much as we can. And so essentially, students start out the semester, they pitch potential game projects that they want to make. They pitch those projects to their fellow students, and generally with a prototype of some kind. And then in this case, the students will tell you a bit more, but we also worked with the game development company Rockstar Games that some people may have heard of. They developed titles like Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption, among others. So we worked with Rockstar Games, and Rockstar, and several developers from Rockstar met with us and with the students via Zoom about every 3 weeks throughout the semester. So they were around for the initial pitches that the students made, and they also were available to give feedback and to play test the games in progress. And they gave lots of feedback, and the students will tell you about the experience. But the teams were self-organized. We had this semester 2 projects, Redo and Germinate, and we're going to have students from, well, basically both of those teams will present projects to you. I was looking for the slides, but they're just not coming up. But the game studio happens in the theater block, which is it's on Main Street in downtown Fitchburg, and it's a renovated space above the old I should say antique, because that sounds way fancier and cooler than old, than the antique theater building that the university purchased a few years ago. It's a really nice office space. People who visited have said, oh, this looks like a real game studio space. So hopefully it felt that way to the students. But really, we're going to, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
No, I think that kind of summarizes things really nicely. Yeah.
But students were largely self-organized. We acted as faculty mentors. We helped them structure, and we helped do some troubleshooting and keep them on track. But largely the day-to-day operation of the studio and the day-to-day working in teams and building games was up to the students. And so we're going to turn this over to those students. And first up, we have Redo. Is that correct? Redo Scarab War. Take it away, John Puleo.
All right. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm John Puleo. I'm the producer of Redo. So let's get into it. Well, that's the wrong one. All right, so the development team. I'm, again, John Puleo, producer. This is Ross. Say hi, Ross.
Hello.
If we want to just go down the line and say,
Yes,
yeah.
sir. Okay.
All right.
I'm Alex Dinsdale. I worked on the rigs for the 3D models and animated them as well.
I'm Sean Flynn. I did 2D art, concept art, and texture art for the 3D assets.
My name is Kenneth DiVinci. I was also part of the art team. I did some of the UI art as well as some concept art for this game too.
My name is Aaron Hogan. I basically did the UI, the sound implementation, and the visual effects.
I'm Emily Scully. I was a level designer for Review, and I did QA testing and lighting.
So this is the team that worked on the game you're about to see. And then with help from Berkeley, they created our sounds for us. So the trailer, oh boy. And so that's our trailer. We're not playing that again. Thank you. Yes, we made a trailer for our game. So this presentation will go over what you just saw and how we came to that final product. And we'll show more gameplay footage at the end.
No, not again.
How do I... There we go. Okay, just to start, some softwares and programs used. Autodesk Maya, Photoshop, Substance Painter, ZBrush. Oh, is it?
You're fine.
Okay. This game was made in Unity, and we used Trello and Google Drive to help keep us organized throughout the process. All right, so where it all began, this is what it looked like in late January. This prototype was created by Ross in Unity, and our core mechanics that we wanted to make this game around were three things. One of them you can see is shooting. We wanted this game to be a Doom-like game. So as you can see, we have melee and weapons just testing out and stuff. And then we have a grapple feature. We found this to be very interesting, and we wanted to base a lot around this feature. And then we also have wall running. We thought if we put all three together, we could make a really cool game. Unfortunately, we had to drop wall running because of various things. So in our final product, we had grapple and then our combat system. And this is what it looked like about a week and a half into the project when it first started, the first and a half week that we got together. And some initial concepts created by Sean and Penn. We were going for, like I said, Doom-like, and the theme that we wanted to go about was bug. We wanted to do a bug-themed Doom-like game where, like, aliens, demons, they've done before, what's very unique. And we wanted a bug theme. So here you can see some early concepts of the main character, some early concepts of enemies, some different weapons, some stuff that was cut, some stuff that's been allocated elsewhere. And we just felt that it was very unique how we were going to go about this. All right, so this is our early prototype for our first hand-in with Rockstar Games. The level was set, very basic default textures on everything. Some characters were implemented for enemies, but not animated. Just very gray-boxed prototype. And as you can see in these GIFs. We're showcasing the grapple system mechanics and then the very default enemy types. And this was during the middle of our development. As you can see, textures got implemented around late March. Textures, we implemented our boss in the bottom right-hand corner. You can see we implemented our boss. And then we started lighting. We'll talk about lighting later. But as you can see, it looks a lot more polished and with the UI. Now, if we go to finalized development, you can see we got rid of the UI. The lighting is done. Our mechanics are finalized to a point that we felt comfortable releasing this. So overall, this is what our progression looked like. Top left, very default, no lighting, placeholders everywhere. Bottom middle is the rough, or is middle ground in between. Textures are in, lighting isn't built, placeholders everywhere, and the top right is our final product. And I believe we'll start with Ross.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Ross. I am the main programmer for Redo. And I wanted to talk about some of the challenges faced while making Redo. Which mostly included, and I'm just going to go out of order of the list here, but it was mostly AI. Just going to say that right now, like maybe 75% of it was just getting the AI to work. We started with like 3-4 different enemy types and then narrowed it down to just 2. But aside from that, it was mostly just making sure everything worked throughout every single stage of development, throughout all the changes and modifications we made to the script, based on what we needed to remove and what we needed to add. Yeah, that was probably the biggest challenge in terms of just programming stuff. That and possibly making stuff I wasn't used to, such as just tweaking navigation and stuff and such. To give you an idea of how much work went into this, on the player prefab alone, there are roughly 2,064 lines of code across all the scripts used to make the player function. That includes stuff for making the guns fire, for being able to move around. That includes stuff for the grappling hook, the melee swinging, and a bunch of other various mechanical functions that are required to make it work. In comparison, our AI script, which is a sort of universal script that we use for both versions of the AI, the big and the small enemy, is around 800, the AI script itself is around 674 lines of code. And in the background of this slide, you can actually see some of that code. However, I believe this is like maybe a quarter of the stuff on the left is about like a quarter of the script, maybe less. And then the rest, and then you can see an outline of the script on the other side of the screen. So yeah, it's kind of a lot to fit into one script. A few things that I have learned during this semester working on this game is that communication is super important. I think that kind of goes without saying. Making sure that everybody knows what's going on and what things are being changed is important. Otherwise, you get problems and conflicts, stuff gets deleted by accident, and you just have a huge problem on your hands. Another thing is learning to not be too attached to your work, especially in terms of programming. I kind of had to deal with this because I made the initial demo for the very first sort of idea of the game, as John mentioned. And as he also mentioned, wall running had to be taken out, and I had spent quite a bit of time, even just by the time we decided to take it out, which was fairly early on just improving that system and getting it working. But some things had to be cut for time's sake, and in the end, the game still works just fine without it. Yeah, that's all I want to say. So we'll be moving on to Alex.
Alrighty. So once again, my name is Alex, and I did all the character rigging and animation work for the game. I had a lot of trouble getting a multiple armed model working right, because up until then I had only been working in with two-arm models, and it showed in some serious difficulty properly weight painting all of these models. It was a switch, because originally I'd been working in 3ds Max, so I had to relearn most of the mechanics of Maya. Admittedly, it wasn't that difficult to relearn it all, but it still kind of slowed me down at the start of the developments. We had a lot of references to use in just like the general animation of things. So considering how few games are actually on the market that have 4-armed characters, I leaned kind of heavily on Mortal Kombat and their very famous Goro for how our big guy would move. And I just kind of emulated that for a much smaller enemy to get a good looking arm movement. Obviously, a simple chameleon, just opening, tongue launch, all that went into the work of both the chameleon head and the tongue. And it really helped with all the references to get things looking kind of insect-like in terms of the equipment. The spider grapple, we wanted, for lack of a better word, it kind of Spider-Man'd the game. But at the same time, we didn't want it to look like Spider-Man, so we were talking a lot about how to make that look right. So we were all like, just stick a spider on your arm. And and then you've got to get all the like precise leg movements, because spiders, I think, have because they're exoskeletons. All the bugs are exoskeletons, so they kind of just move really unnerving. But the gun, however, was quite interesting. Initially, it only started off with about 6 pairs of spikes to rig, and then I got an updated model from my good old friend John that had 16 spikes. Or 16 pairs of spikes. So I had to weight paint 32 spikes. Thank you, John. We had a lot of trouble with some of the animations. In particular, there were times where scripting broke the animations, and we had significant tiling, especially with the Antitor, which is our big guy. We had way too many issues with that guy in, I want to say, was it early March? Yeah. Where I'd export an animation, it'd get implemented into Engine, and then boom, we just have this random triangle hanging out from like his inner thigh, and it looked very incriminating. So just after a while, we just kept on going, kept trying to fix it, and that solution worked itself out by end of March, usually around there. Around the start of April, we started adding smaller components to the game, such as the eyes on the weapon and the spikes. Those were not initially on the weapon, because this was, I think, our 3rd draft of weapon we wanted to use. So we added those to give some uniqueness to the way the weapon looked and felt in terms of how the combat would work. And with that, I will pass it off to Sean.
Hello, I'm Sean Flynn. So I did texture and concept work as well as 2D work for Redo, and there was a lot that I learned this semester. In particular, you're gonna have to redo things. Anytime you do something, there's gonna have to be a second or a third pass. I did this Antitor texture 3 times before it finally got right, and you know, in the beginning, it's a thing you come to accept. But in the end, I think it still, even though it was a 3rd pass, I still think it came out pretty good. Another thing, don't be afraid to take breaks. There is, at least as an artist, things start piling up on one another, and sometimes it's gonna seem like your list is endless. However, you still have to take breaks. Your personal health is still extremely important. You know, take care of yourself, speak up, communicate with your team, say, you know, I can't do all of this right now, you know, can we extend this, things like that. And, you know, be open to criticism, whatever people have to say. If someone says, you know, this texture doesn't look right, do it again. That's kind of all you can do. If you get things into Unity, or, well, yeah, we use Unity, And once we built lighting, the colors of everything changed. Do textures again. It's just sometimes how it goes. I wasn't honestly prepared for that. That was something that I learned, but now going forward, I honestly know. Yeah. And in terms of finalized concept art, we started off with the Antitor. Concept was just big, beefy. So I'm like, all right, what do we do with big and beefy? Well, make them big and beefy. And to contrast that, the grunt was made to be much smaller in comparison. There were, as said before, 2 other enemy types that didn't make it in. I did this very early concept art, late February, I think, when we still had the idea of 4 enemies, and that's 2 other pieces of concept art that got scrapped. It happens. You're gonna have good ideas, and they're not all gonna make it into a game, but don't take that personally. It's just game design. Yeah, Ben?
Hello, my name is Penoki Pinty. Am I looking at the camera? So my job was basically a secondary artist with Sean. What I learned with this project, I spent a lot of time at the beginning really trying to figure out what to do for this project. I wasn't sure initially what my role would be. So I was helping out with concept art like this one, which is just the concept for the tutorial level, and then our concept art for the spider boss that initially was part of the pitch but had to get cut because it was just too much to add. And then like some more concepts here just that didn't make it in, like his axes and other bugs. Here I have went through like all the different evolutions that the name graphic went through. Just the title on itself took a lot of iteration, and like the first version looked completely different than what ended up happening. I'd worked on the boss bar for the chameleon thing, in which case, don't try to make the texture of the scales yourself. It looks good, but it's not worth the time. And like the other thing was with the animated icon that I worked on for the UI, that was part of the game for a while, and then ended up being cut because we decided that it was just taking up too much space. So yeah, like Sean said, like don't take it personally when these things you spend a ton of time on don't make it into the game. It's just part of the development cycle. I think that's all for me.
All right. My name's Aaron. Again, I did UI, visual effects, sound implementation, like taking all the sounds from Berkeley, implementing them into the game. So my main focus at the very beginning was trying to figure out what we wanted to go with for the UI, like basically planning it out, making a concept for it, making it look, or at least, trying to make it look good at the beginning. A lot of the stuff that I had done for UI, especially towards the beginning, we're all going to sound like a broken record here because it happened to all of us, but stuff is going to get scrapped and it's not going to get used. That especially was true for the UI stuff, like a lot that I worked on throughout like a pretty good chunk of the semester, like almost up until like about a month ago, basically all had to get thrown out the door because we were like, we want to do this differently, but it ended up turning out way better than we had expected. So again, can't be mad about it. It ended up working out. And then as for like VFX, particle implementation, I basically did all the particle effects for like when the gun charges and you see like the pink kind of like particles almost kind of like fusing around the front of the gun. That was me. The muzzle flashes for the guns, the fireflies around all the grapple points, the wind when the chameleon like roars and pushes you away. A lot of that went through a lot of iteration as well, but I'd say that most of it kind of stayed the same. Like even some of the muzzle flashes are from the more like beginning of the semester. Obviously we tuned them up, but that part didn't really change. And then my last job, which was sound implementation, like I had said before, like all the stuff from Berkeley, like the sound effects, the music they gave us, getting that to not only fit into the game, to code that and make sure it fit in well, and then also like pitching up or down or cutting a sound file in half if it's too long or anything like that. And then on this next slide, I have a lot of the examples of where stuff kind of went from the beginning of the semester. So in the top right, the like the health bar and stuff used to be a thing. Like it used to kind of, as you got damaged, it would go down, and there was a little animation on the end that made it look like a pool of blood was kind of like filling in like a vial, and you know, it would go up and down as you got damaged. And then that kind of went from like all of this like excess information that you would have in the top left of the screen, ammo counter and everything like that, to literally just what you see on the top right, which is kind of like as you get hurt, the screen kind of like this blue fades in, and that was kind of like what I was saying before, the turning point for a lot of what I was doing. Like we had to literally scrap what I was working on for this at the beginning of the semester and throw it out the window. But honestly, I think it was a lot better, totally worth it. And then also for the VFX, like this stuff towards the beginning of the semester, even like this shotgun animation that you see down the bottom left, that continued to get used. And then I did like ammo icons, the hit markers for body shots and headshots. Those ended up staying in. So some stuff stays, some stuff goes. We all learned lessons here. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's mostly it.
Hello everybody, I'm Emily Vescovi. I was the level designer for Team Redo. I'm going to quickly just talk about my process from start to finish. So first thing first, research. Oh my god, please do your research. Our game was basically based off of Doom. I've never played Doom, please don't burn me at the stake. I probably should have played it, but didn't have time. So the next best thing to do is to watch a bunch of playthroughs and take notes. Take notes on level design and player flow, stuff like that. It helps a lot, especially during the paper map process. I cannot stress enough the importance of refinement in paper maps. Don't expect it to stay the same throughout, really don't. Our original planned level progression was scoped for 10 levels. Fun, I know, right? Scoped for 12 people, but it was too much. We knew that, so we scoped it down to 4, was still too much. But by then I had already drawn 6+ paper maps, which really isn't that much, honestly. 3 of those being just for the tree level alone, which was the tutorial level, each one being built off of each other. So for paper maps, you really want to keep what works and what doesn't work, which helps when you are prototyping, you know, gray box and stuff like that. So basically my process was first iteration of paper map, gray box. Test, see what works, what doesn't work, move on, iterate a new paper map, test that in gray box point 2, and so on. Gray boxing and white boxing means focusing on a simplified level testing for mechanics. That's more gray box, but it does leak into white box as well. So for gray box, I immediately tested our core mechanics. So that was the grappling, testing AI enemy behavior, placements, player flow. All that is so important to nail right off the bat, because you want to bring that, any problems whatsoever to white box. You want to have that nailed in gray box. And finally, once we reached like the final product, it was basically QA testing the level layout and making tweaks. So checking blocking volumes, player boundaries, making sure AI still worked for what it would work for, and player flow, making sure that's smooth. This is just basically our level progression throughout the semester. Top left is what we had planned originally, all 10 levels. Probably would have cried myself to sleep, but that's all right. We moved to 4 levels. You see there on the right, still too much. And on the bottom there, that's just basically how the 3 paper maps for level 1 progressed. So bottom left is what I had initially in the beginning, probably within the first 2 weeks of the semester. The middle, I took what worked in that first map. Some of it didn't work, like there was an outdoor area for grappling. Oops. That was taken out eventually in the final paper map. So we just didn't have enough time. So what doesn't work, you got to take out. This just shows the progression of the game from gray box to white box to final product. The left column there is just a room. It shows progression in there. The middle column is the boss room, and the right column is the level itself. You can see in the bottom right that the level did expand quite a bit. That's because gray box and white box, it was too short. You could literally get through that level in like 2 minutes. So, some challenges I faced: lighting. It sucks. It's hard, especially interior lighting. And I'm not someone to really work in Unity. I'm more of a bias towards Unreal. But really, when it comes to stuff like that, you got to do more research and lots of experimenting. I can't tell you how many times I sat in front of that computer just watching it bake right in front of me for an hour because it wouldn't update in the inspector or anything. So it was like, it's the best way to learn though, so lots of valuable information there. And even with the baking, it was still dark in a lot of places, so I had to go back and do more research about reflection probes and all this other stuff. We also had a little scale issue in the very beginning where there was some back and forth between like the scale in the environment and the player and the AI. Sometimes you gotta go with your gut. I mean, in my case, I'm the level designer, so I know what works and what doesn't work. So, I mean, the team might feel one way, but you might feel another. So you really just gotta step back, play it, figure out what feels right, and sometimes you just gotta say to the team, like, it's a good idea, but it doesn't work. But, yeah, that's it.
All right, and then we finish off with me. So I'll start with the producer role. So this was my first time being put into a producer role. I cursed fate and said at the beginning of studio that I just wanted to 3D model and relax. And then I got made producer. So as this first time producer, I had trouble with organization in the beginning. I didn't know how to set up for a group of this magnitude, how to set up organization and making sure everyone was on track and making sure people knew what other people were doing, and some people didn't need to know that information. So that was a struggle in the first few weeks for me. But I realized that Trello was my friend, and that I was like, just use Trello. Make sure I'll put the stuff you need to do in there. I'll put the backlogs there. Just making sure everyone's on track to what they're doing. I held meetings every week, multiple meetings a week, getting everyone's feedback. Not only was I a first-time producer, but also this is a capstone project, and I wanted everyone to have a lot more say in this project than me putting my foot down on stuff. So I feel like I was a very loose in terms of what everyone wanted. It was more of a consensus of what we should have, and then I'd just organize that from there. And then I had to stay in contact with Berkeley, our people from there, and they gave us sounds, and they were really cool. And so we'd make a list of sounds we needed. I'd have a meeting with our contact from Berkeley, and they'd give us the sounds, first wave. Then we go back, I'd have a meeting with our group, see what worked, what didn't work, and then went back into a meeting again with Berkeley, and they seemed to nail everything on the second try. But a new experience was working with people outside of our group. And then we use Google Drive for most of our file sharing and saving. That got pretty messy at times. I had to rearrange a lot of stuff, make new files, make sure everybody knew what file to take from. So yeah, that was me as a producer. Now, I also did 3D modeling, so anything within the level I made in Maya. This is when I just put in my headphones and just went to town. Textures done by Sean. But this is the asset kit that Emily used to populate that level. And we would work back and forth on what she needed and what I could get her. at what time. So there's the kit, and then in the top right is the gun. I had a lot of fun making this. The eyes and the spikes and just the shape itself. I went to Sean and was like, make me a biological weapon art. And then he did, and I made that. And that's what came out of just taking your time and doing what you like. But I went through this gun model multiple times, but it seemed to go fast because this was, again, a core mechanic was the combat, and it seemed like we updated this gun very quick and very fast, and we're just keeping up with that pace. So, some pitfalls that we had, I'll talk about that now. Initial scope. For this, as you heard from everyone, a lot of stuff had to get cut out. Almost everyone had something in this game that did not make it in it, and that's all right because we feel confident in what we delivered. But for the scope, we scoped it for 12, thinking we could do a capstone with everyone within the capstone class. Fortunately, we split up, and so right off the bat we had a scope down, and so that's when we got from 10 levels.
I'm so sorry.
10 levels from to 4. We tried to stick with 4 for about 2 weeks, and then we had our first Rockstar meeting, and they were like, "It's not possible," and we understood that, and we immediately put it down to 1. So in terms of scope, we feel like we did the best thing is to cut it immediately. We didn't really push back on anything in terms of cutting out, in terms of having the player initially have 3 different weapons. Rockstar in the first meeting was like, take it out. So now we have 1 weapon that has 2 modes. So we got rid of a lot of problems with that. They said we had 4 enemies in the beginning. They said get it down to 1. We felt we could do 2, and we could do 2, and so there's 2 in there. And then narrative, I feel bad because this game was heavily revolving around the narrative, but there was no way we could showcase narrative professionally with this amount of gameplay. There's about 5 or 6 minutes of gameplay here. So that had to get cut out. But another thing we overcame was the UI readjustment. As Aaron said, sometime in April, our 3rd meeting with Rockstar, they straight up told us your UI isn't working for you. And right after that meeting, we went into the meeting room. 2 hours later, we were able to implement a whole new health system, and 2 days after, we were able to implement the ammo counter on the gun. And we felt that was way better than what we originally had. So take criticisms and work with them, run with them. They might have something better that comes out of it. Yeah, so any questions? Yeah. Here, and then I'll play gameplay footage. Yeah, let me. Yeah.
It's muted.
Yeah, okay. So now you get to see actual footage, and I can answer questions.
Well, maybe we can move this over. Got it. Over here. Okay. This should probably pick up everybody who's here. So if anybody has either questions for the team overall or for any specific person. Do you want me to moderate or John?
No, I can do it. Cool. Yes.
So it seems like wall running was like a pretty core mechanic originally. Mm-hmm. What caused you guys specifically to cut that?
I think just because our level, as you can see with the walls, there wasn't a lot of straight running, and that would have caused so many problems. I think Ross, you can talk about that a lot.
Yeah, no, John basically nailed it on the head. It was mostly the fact that, and this is no discredit to our level designer, Emily, at all, that it's just that the wall running wouldn't have been compatible with this sort of environment. Because, like John said, not a lot of straight, solid bits of wall that would sort of be conducive to wall running along them. And also just sort of the height started to get a bit lower, so there wasn't a lot of room for error if you did get on a wall by some chance and didn't want to fall off.
Yeah, I'd say wall running got cut in the first 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. That's when we had multiple levels planned. When we were gonna have different themes that it could be compatible with, but with the levels out and this level not having enough to work with wall running, we took it out.
Is there any reason that your team chose for a more realistic style with this as opposed to more like a retro Doom style?
Didn't we said at the start we wanted to imitate Valheim a bit, and it just kind of
spiraled.
Yeah, we couldn't figure out how to get that kind of PlayStation 1 aesthetic to look right. So in the end, we just went off of what Sean's concept art was like, and it just kind of fell into place from there.
What would you say was probably the most difficult hurdle you had to overcome in this project?
I'd say...
Yeah, which one?
So back in March, we had a pipeline break. Our animation pipeline broke. In terms of difficulty, this was the most difficult. It only lasted 2 days for one prefab. It was for the big Antitor enemy. We were having difficulty combining all of the animations textures into Unity. Sometimes the texture would look warped, other times the animation wouldn't work. Just combining it together. Eventually, 2 days after, we got it to work perfectly. But I'd say that was a very stressful 24 hours.
It happened. It was 2 days before spring break too,
Something
so
like that,
it was going to be.
We needed to work around spring break, and we didn't want to leave one of the two main enemies broken.
And it turns out one of the fixes for one of the problems was just we didn't
It
set
was
the import settings
it was a
correctly.
lovely Unity thing because a checkbox ruins everything.
He's not exaggerating. It was actually one checkbox that was the cause of maybe 15 different iterations. The
Yes.
same thing.
Yes.
But that actually does make me remember one more thing. How much sleep did you lose during the project?
That's a good question. What is sleep?
Yes.
Yes.
It's true.
Yeah.
Is it okay if I actually give you guys some praise as opposed to asking questions? Because there's a lot of things I read.
Sure. Yeah, that seems fine.
Yeah, just stroke our egos a bit.
I was playing this last night, and I think your level designer, you did the 3D art. I think Sean did a lot of the texturing. I think a lot of that comes together in a really brilliant way. It's very rare that I play games here at Fitchburg State that take the time to do something special with the environment. And you mentioned before that you cut a lot of narrative, and a lot of that shows through the world you're in. A lot of that shows through the weapon animation. The eyes, that is brilliant. I love that. And that is a really good way to have narrative in your game without literally having text. And especially for something that's going for Doom. I think that.
We had initially made I had drafted up a really stupidly elaborate narrative. It was pointlessly elaborate for the sake of I wanted to flex my writing muscles a bit, and everyone was it was part of the reason the pitch got chosen in the first place. People just liked the idea of the gameplay and liked the potential story we had, And it's a shame we had to cut the story, but looking back, I realized there was no way, there wasn't an Ice Cube's chance in hell of that actually getting put into the game.
Yeah, I was about to say, we
a
had
branching
branching
narrative, two endings, two bosses that actually had a name for a while.
Oh god. If we had kept the whole pit studio for this game, like the initial pitch was pitched for 12 people, I think it's possible we could have gotten some narrative.
We could have definitely gotten some
not
narrative
all of them,
in,
though. But not all of it.
We
for
we,
sure.
we made the decision initially in our initial scope down after the teams got coalesced to cut pretty much an entire path, a named NPC, and we were going to make the other NPC the original boss, the original boss of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Then we realized we would have had to have animated a 8-armed, dual axe wielding melee boss rather than a chameleon.
Mm-hmm.
And given all the issues we had with UI or AI pathing, excuse me, looking back, that probably would have been the worst decision possible.
I don't even want to think about it. I really don't.
Because
I really appreciate the bravery in going with the grapple mechanic. That is a really cool mechanic. I've seen a lot of people try that and fail miserably.
That's all this man. That's all this man right here.
So, like, if I can sidetrack for a second, I think part of the reason that came out so well was kind of because I was already experimenting around with grapple in my own time. Like, this was, like, the base programming for this was actually taken from a tutorial on just the swinging bit, and then I sort of half improvised, half modified some code for the reel-in, which is very rarely used, but even so. And then from there, I just tweaked the base code from that tutorial into what we have here. So, you know, having a basis to work off of, even if it's like a very simple Unity tutorial, is a great way to speed up development. I would say, as a little side note, if they give you code in like the description, don't copy paste it, because it is so much better to like listen to the guy talking and then type it up yourself, because then you actually know what's going on, as opposed to, well, I put this code in here, how do I add in this function now? But yeah, so that's part of the reason why I think it came together pretty smoothly, at least, you know, for what it is.
Is there any other questions?
I do really genuinely like the particle effects, especially like the firefly sort of animation as well. I really liked kind of just like how they didn't make the levels seem like totally like empty. I kind of liked how they kind of made it more lived in.
Yeah. We needed something to tell the player, hey, this is what you can grapple onto. And we're like, if it's a bug theme in a tree, might as well use fireflies. So a lot of people said that was a good like indication to the grapple placeholder. So
Thinking back on it, wouldn't the actual fireflies be literally the size of your character too? Like thinking back on it.
Okay, it's also bugs holding guns.
Yeah. Well, fine.
There's also a really, really, really buff ant in this game.
Yeah.
Okay.
He took the Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Huh?
Who's the best at the game and who's the worst at the game?
This is a thing of raw. We've played it 100 times.
Considering I made the demo for the initial pitch, no, I actually don't think I'm the best.
Aaron, I will fight you on this one.
Considering I'm the one who got the 360.
Yeah, you got the 360 no scope in the trailer, Sean. Don't worry about it.
I rest my case.
Yes.
Does the 3D model for the player character exist?
No.
No, that was originally
It's
an
literally
idea.
a bunch of nothing, and then everything attached to the bunch of nothing.
Actually, you're kind of wrong on that, because I think the capsule the mesh render has been enabled since like several months
So
ago.
there's an invisible capsule, but no, there is no actual.
There's no
Other
legs.
than a disembodied arm.
You have a disembodied arm and two arms, yeah,
Two,
because you got the grapple in the melee.
Yeah, and the gun isn't even. You can't even see the back of the gun, so we figured, well, we don't really need an arm to hold that up, do we?
In the grand scheme of things, we initially pitched this. There would be a canon reason why 4 arms would be visible at times. You're a bug.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's still the reasoning.
Yeah.
Did we see melee in the trailer?
Yes. Yes.
It's very quick.
It is very quick.
Yeah. Blitzer.
Yeah. You swung in and bashed
Yeah.
the ant grunt over the head with it.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you scrapped a lot of the story. What was the general story?
A upcoming civil war to overthrow an old king, and you were the king's personal bodyguard essentially. And once the king died, you had to choose a side.
Yeah.
And the spider was Scottish.
Yes, aggressively Scottish. Aggressively Scottish.
What was your process behind the wizard boss?
So we definitely wanted a boss to showcase this level. We felt like just having enemies was. Rockstar told us to get rid of the boss, to not do a boss, just to hone in on this game. But we felt like we could do a boss, and it was either the general spider or the or the chameleon. And we're like, why can't it just be a poking head and its main function is the tongue? And we felt that was pretty cool. Just this big, imposing, monster-esque chameleon trying to eat you as a bug. And so, initially within the narrative, this would have been the first boss no matter what. And it was the pet of the general that the general would be riding the chameleon during the boss fight, and then you'd kill it, and the general would just go flee, and then you'd fight him in another level.
Spider scuttle off.
Yeah. Right. So,
if I remember correctly, the first time that you showed a working prototype to Rockstar, and you said, "Well, we have plans to develop these bosses," and they were like, "But the chameleon is here, and this is cool, and it looks pretty good as is, and you already basically have the core mechanics for this chameleon.
Yeah.
Why kill yourself trying to do animation for a multi-arm block?"
Yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
kind of, I feel like it was their suggestion initially, but you had already implemented the chameleon kind of as a placeholder or a mini boss, and then you kind of
Yeah, we just leaned into what essentially was already built into it.
We had the chameleon idea from the Baron.
Oh, big time! It was
I think-
Eric's idea initially, right?
Yeah, we definitely wanted something to eat bugs as a boss, and we were like, chameleon, it could change colors and everything. Obviously, we couldn't change colors in here because the lighting made it look bad. But we made it look dinosaur-esque-ish.
Generally imposing.
Yeah. Right. So yeah. Any other questions?
Did you have a question?
I have 2 questions. They were both stolen by other people.
Oh, is there anything on the stream? Oh, somebody said, why is it called Redo, Alex?
So that was something me and Emily came up with together. She was looking up like bug names because we wanted the protagonist, and and I remembered this thing called an assassin bug, and I told her to look it up. And she sent me the screenshot, like, the hell is this? Why does it look like it's got like a big pointy nose on it? And I'm like, look at the Latin name. It's Redo Vide. That just sounds
cool.
Good. And we were like, okay, so we're not going to use Redo Vide because that's a mouthful to say. So we just chopped it in half and chose Redo. Now, in the grand scheme of things, we did not actually look up which part of it was assassin and which part of it was bug. So this may just be called Bug the Game.
Well, actually, no, it'd be Bug Scare War, but yes.
So that is where Redo comes from. Yeah, we had a lot of fun on this project through files getting overwritten in Unity,
AI breaking,
or AI breaking,
GitHub breaking,
yeah,
3 times.
dealing with GitHub, Unity did not like some of the stuff we do to it.
You
Crashed.
two. You had an issue with your computer that caused you to unplug it like 3 times.
Oh yeah, the computer's constantly froze up. I forgot about that part.
Unity sometimes was our friend, sometimes hated us, but
I loved loading in the game demo and seeing my my hard worked Antitor animations on a quilt model.
But having a 3D game like this is a lot for a Unity project.
Oh, yeah.
We had to copy this one level like multiple times within the project, and our file got up to about like 19 gigs.
I think it was actually breaking 20 at one point.
Yeah, at some point. And then we had a big lighting, and that was a lot. So even with calling in and all that stuff, but we think that we showcased our mechanics and what we wanted to do from the start. And then we just added on aesthetically, so.
Just as a side note, the game file size, just the build version, is around 2 gigabytes, just over that.
I think it was like 900 megabytes.
Well, no,
Yeah,
that's,
on the
that's,
H page.
that's the compressed one.
Yeah.
It's
So-
not taking the actual files inside.
Oh,
of it.
yeah.
We decreased it by 20 times.
Yeah,
But
something like
this
that,
game-
basically.
This game is on our H page. I don't know if someone wants to post it in the chat or something.
Yeah, but you can find it from the Facebook
Yeah,
page
anywhere
as well.
anywhere where there's capstone mentioned, but yeah, that's
Redo's Cowboy.
That's Redo. This is what we did for the
Existence is
Fun for me.
Yeah, oh, bring this back.
Yes, we get to keep our center of the table.
Oh, that's right, and you two get to stay. Sorry that two of our students are going to continue in the hot seat because they worked on both projects. I realized I should give a very quick little something I kind of missed in the overview. Two things. One, for students that are considering doing the Game Studio Capstone, I cannot stress the importance of having an actual playable prototype at the beginning of the semester as part of the pitch of the game to your fellow students and to your team. And both of the games that were selected, and there were a number of pitches, I can't remember how many, 6 or 8 at least. The two that got selected were the two that had the most refined prototypes. They didn't get chosen because they had prototypes strictly, right? But they got the most support from other students. And then what John and I did as professors is we had students vote on what project, kind of their top 3 projects, kind of rank the projects that they would like to work on and what roles they would like to have in those projects. And then we assessed that and then selected the games based on student interest. And so the students, each student will have a different answer for why they chose a particular game. But we did the best we could in terms of organizing the studio around the games that the students themselves actually wanted to work on, short of like literally doing Lord of the Flies and saying work on whatever you want, right? So we helped manage that process. So that's why, and the Redo team did rightly mention like they did a pitch for the full game studio, but that was not really what the will of the students wanted to do. That if there was, so just that's I guess I wanted to bring that up. So I would like to invite the Germinate team to come down. And we will. Sorry, I should have done that while I was. Here we go.
All right, so we are the team that worked on Germinate. I will introduce everyone soon. But just to go over the concept of Germinate, it's a narrative 2D platformer that follows the story of Sprig as he journeys through the afterlife to find his siblings, Aloe and Frond. So this is our prototype that I created beginning of the semester. So basically, I came up with the pitch for this game, I think like in a week? Or I had the concept in my head for about a year, and I wanted to make something that was about these plants that I had owned at some point, and they died, which is why this game takes place in the afterlife. It's kind of like an apology. Because that was my first plants I've ever had, and of course I picked air plants, and they're not easy to take care of. So this concept was a very narrative experience of changing the world through your actions. So this is kind of like a demonstration of the germination that happens when you complete a quest. I just wanted to quickly go over the progression of what our game looked like over the entire semester. The prototype you saw was something I did in 3 days, and then this was our official team prototype here where everyone's working. Oops. And we got roasted by Rockstar with that one. And then our alpha's over here. I hope you guys can see the mouse. Yeah. And this is our beta screenshot, which is pretty close to, I mean, this is what the final looks like in this part of the game. I'm just going to show the trailer. Yeah. If I can get to the next slide. So I just want to introduce everybody and everyone's role on the team before we get into our individual stuff here. So I'm Tori Croteau. I was the producer, director, animator. I did visual effects, 2D art, audio implementation, level design, and narrative. I overworked myself. And we have Cam Connolly is responsible for QA, level design, and narrative. Chris Greeley was responsible for level design. He was a 3D environment artist, and he did visual effects as well. Tanner Cobb is our gameplay engineer, technical animator. Sean Flynn is our 2D artist. And Penn, is it Achi Pinti? Is that how you said it? Oki Pinti is our 2D artist and texture artist. And we also had Eric Pompeo part-time helping us do animations. We also had an audio team at Berkeley. The same people that worked on Redo, they were also working on our game. So big props to them for handling 2 projects at once. And same to Sean and Penn as well. Shane Toothman was the audio director for Germinate, so I corresponded with them primarily the whole semester. And then Denai Evans, JP Cannell, and Lauren Cox. So I'm just going to go through not everything that I did, but the stuff that I want to talk about, which is not producer work because it's boring to talk about. So I did the character artwork for the core 4 characters. These 3 up here were my original design from a year ago based on the air plants that I had, and I did a redesign of aloe specifically. And then the spider plant over here was actually a concept that Penn came up with that I absolutely loved, and I made a kind of new design of it. So I did a lot of character animation as well. I iterated on Eric's base animations, which you can see here. I want to say like 4 or 5 different updates were made to the animations based on Rockstar's feedback, and then I made these by myself. I needed Spinner to jump for a cutscene, and we needed Death and Resurrects, and like a wall landing animation. So I also did kind of hand-drawn frame animations for visual effects. These down here are the particle effects that play when Sprig's walking. So there's a dust particle effect and a dust landing particle effect. And then this is like, we have a drip hazard, so this is the drip kind of going out. I'm also responsible for the fog effects on the first level. You can kind of see that there. And the water shader that makes the water kind of move like that. And then the gold leaf visual effects is a particle effect I think I've made like 1,000,000 times because it's just like an interesting fire. I'm also responsible for the backgrounds in the game. They all parallax. The game has 3 separate cameras. That took a lot of fiddling to get the optimization quite right. But the background parallaxes, and then there's a foreground parallaxing camera. So each of these backgrounds I think has, I'm gonna say 4 layers. And then there's 2 versions for the first level because that has a pretty drastic change for germination. And then the tree is like the simplest one, but I've gotten a lot of compliments on it, which is kind of hilarious considering it took like 2 hours. And then the cave background is about 4 layers. Also responsible for all of the cutscenes in the game. They're all done using timeline, which is way better than just doing everything like the animator or just animation, because you can animate multiple things at once. And they have something called signal emitters, which are basically animation events, but better because you can call scripts from objects that aren't attached to the game object. But I think I have it written down, 26 timelines for this game, mainly because a lot of them had to be broken up into different pieces so that it would play at the right time of the dialogue. And with that, Tanner.
I don't know if the camera can see me. Can the cameras? A little taller. All right, cool. So I'm Tanner. I'm this system designer, programmer, whatever you want to call it. Here's a short list of the things that I did, and these are probably the bigger ones. There are a lot more than this. This is just a few of them, the most notable ones. Instead of going through and just telling you, everything I did, I'm going to tell you my favorite part and the part that was the most challenging. The character controller. So this is, you saw Tori's little demo, right? So she made a character controller and I had to, and yes, I know it's blank. There's animations. So I had to take her controller for the game and I had to completely rebuild it because hers was it was super basic and it was just kind of like a YouTube, player controller. It was good. It was fine. Did what it needed to do. But I had to completely redesign it because we started to implement, there were slopes, we wanted like wall hangs, wall jumps, all these different mechanics, gliding. So here's actually like a picture of like the movement settings that the team was playing with. The one on the left is what it currently looks like. I believe that's the ones that are being currently used, but you can see the little picture at the bottom. That's the one that I set up a scriptable object so everybody could go in, make their own player settings, and so everybody could kind of like figure out which ones were the best. Tori's ended up being the best. And here's the state control for the character. So this took a long time to get right because honestly, the player controller, like I could have probably gone back, like I tried to go back and get pictures of everything, but I changed it so many times and redesigned it so many times solely because I just don't want to design something that works, but I can't go back to and edit it. So I kept going back and iterating over and over and over. So the state controller and player detection, which you'll see in a minute, is completely separate from the character altogether. And honestly, that made things really easy because, or from what Tori told me, the state controller actually, you know, it has like an on state enter and on state exit. So you can actually trigger sound effects, other things. So from that script that I made things super useful. And actually, right up here, this is kind of what I was doing in the beginning. And so I did say I was a technical animator, and that's pretty much what I did. So when I was doing the state controller, I had to kind of link all that together with the controller itself, and that was a challenge because there were so many different things we had to do for a 2D game. Initially, it was a pretty basic control. You know, you had the walk, the jump, you know, the arrows going to different states. That works. However, we had to drastically change it to this setup at the bottom here, which you can see says arrow, ground, wall. Inside of each one of those is a substate. So you can travel to different substates and activate different animations. This was honestly probably the most time-consuming and challenging part of my development. It took up most of my time, and this was probably the most revolutionary part of the development, was the detection for the character. I can't tell you how many times I found numerous ways of controlling the character. I've tried just about everything. The most challenging part was the slopes. The slopes in the game, I researched many other games. I've played many other games during the process, and lo and behold, not many platformers have slopes because they don't want to deal with it, because it brings about lots of control issues. However, the thing that came to my aid was trigonometry, good old trigonometry. Yes, you can actually see in the bottom right there in those GIFs that the little line that's detecting the ground. So that's detecting the ground, and when he's walking up that slope, you can see that there's a line that points to the side of him, and that's showing you which direction he's actually trying to move into. And so it's dynamic. It changes with the level of the ground. It also does that for the wall as well. It can tell what angle of a wall you're on, so it jumps you off that wall at that angle. It's pretty dynamic. This whole character controller, I would say I did not finish this until, I don't know.
I almost want to say April.
Yeah, I don't even know. Like, I've been working on it so much. I haven't touched it for quite a while, but April, yeah. So here's my favorite part. This was probably the most enjoyable part of making any system for this game, was the quests. Absolutely. I don't know why, but I just enjoyed making this so much because, it was complicated because of the save system, and that's another story. If you want to know about the save system, ask me. I'm not going to talk about it because it's too long of a process. So for the quests, this was kind of an interesting one because I wasn't really sure how to go about it, and I've never really done anything like this before. So I kind of set things up initially. I wanted scriptable objects so other people could go in and easily make them without having to program, and that was really my main goal, was to make it kind of easily accessible without having to program a whole lot of things. And that's what we've achieved here, and you can see on the left here, this is what the quests look like when you're building them. So people can go through and just build out an entire quest. They don't have to do anything. They can just build out an entire quest, and you could even have someone who is a little more technically experienced go in and take that quest and make it, set up the quest triggers, which is here, and that's where you would do that's where you would do a function like the one on the right there with the quest UI. You would set up something to just add progress to a quest. You have to set that up with a little bit of code, but it's not a whole lot. It's not nearly that complex. But this whole process was just, it was just my favorite part. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. And time for Cameron.
All right, hi. My name is Cameron. As from the beginning, I ended up doing QA, level and narrative design. I'm going to talk about my QA experience first because this is my first time actually doing QA in a professional field. And it's something I've always wanted to tackle because the bare minimum I knew about QA was, oh, you play games until they're broken. And I heard that and I was like, I can do that. I can do that. So, yes. And our, hi, Tim. And our beginning of development from January to February, oh no, it's broken. Okay. But yeah, during the beginning of our development, considering it was a 2D platformer, our main focus was movement. So we spent a really long time working on a movement system. And this is the little checklist I made on Trello. I would note down like anything stupid about the movement that we had to fix. And yeah, I made my own little playground that I used for like until February. And then after that, yeah, we used what we used for the second half, which is just like general bugs and areas of polish. There were a lot of those. A lot of those. But yeah, and I'm I'm very proud of the QA work that I did, though. In all seriousness, I am begrudgingly happy that I got to ruin Tanner's day multiple times, and yeah, that was my QA experience for the most part. This is, yeah, and I also did the narrative design. I adapted Tori's original narrative from the pitch, and I wanted to focus around two different things while writing the dialogue. That this is about healing a dead land, and this is about family. And that's what this narrative is about. And I could go on about my narrative process for hours, but I'm going to like put myself on a mental timer, so I don't do that. So yeah, these four things here, I would say, are the four things that went through my head during the narrative design. One of them, the intro, that's really easy. It sets the overall tone for the game, and I wanted to make sure that it was something that introduced the story to the player, started getting their imaginations rolling, and the intro shows that theme of family, as you can see. Here's an interesting one, natural tutorializing, that's what I call it. I have this really fun way of doing narrative design where I talk like the characters, I say everything they say, because something that bothers me about some narrative design is that some of the dialogue feels like shoehorned in, and it's not like natural. It's not something a person would say. So yeah, I don't know how well you can see the top right image, but Spinner says the line, jumping up walls is pretty easy. If you have good footing, you can hang on for as long as you want. Footing doesn't matter in this game. Sprig's feet could be anywhere and it won't matter. But I don't know, it's something natural. It's something that like you would expect to hear if you were trying to climb up a wall. But the player just has to like jump onto the wall. Like, Spinner's not going to say that. Like, jump onto the wall and then hold down on your controller to no, he's not going to say that. Third thing is flavor. This is just like the cute parts of the game that most of them come through multiple dialogue options that have different branches. My favorite one is Spinner, get rid of the termites. I love I love picking that line. But they all lead to the same goal of you have to start getting rid of termites in the tree, but the process to get there is nice. And then the last one is show don't tell. This is specifically for narrative design using the setting around you, and I think that shows best in the cave level, where you can tell that something is very wrong immediately. Red is not typically the color of your everyday cave, so, and there's dialogue hinting that something is wrong with the cave, and the rest of it is left up to the player's imagination, because that's one of the most important things in game narrative design is you play with the player's imagination. And I think that's what makes a good narrative. And then last one's going to be all my level design work. Paper maps. Near the beginning of the project, we also had a document that is not on the slideshow, but this document had nearly, I want to say like 20, 25 like level ideas, and because something that was glossed over when Tori was talking about the initial pitch is that this was pitched somewhat like a Metroidvania. So that's how I approached each of these paper maps in like a Metroidvania mindset. That's why you'll see the bottom right one here. It has like 4 different crossroads. I did a bonus draft for the tree level. It didn't end up getting used, but I made like a hub world, an oasis, which actually ended up making it in the credits thanks to, I believe it's Penn's concept artwork. I want to say that. Okay, thank God. I mix up your artwork sometimes, I'm sorry. But yeah, oasis, hub world, and this is big because this cave actually ended up getting used in the game. And this is how it looks now, compared to how it looks, I don't know, in that first week of making paper maps. It's a lot less, I don't know, what's the word, clunky. And I am personally very proud with how this level turned out, with all of its, like, playing with the darkness and the settings. We talked about that. Where all the collectibles are laid out. And the music in the cave that Berkeley composed is also very incredible, and we also have our own like whispers and sound effects going in the cave before that happens, so I'm happy about that. And Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris Greeley. I'm the other level designer, as well as doing some VFX work and 3D environment art, which might seem like a weird thing to say because this is a 2D game, but I'll elaborate on that more later. So this is the first level that I worked on. It kind of looks the same length because of how the pictures are cropped, but it was expanded quite a bit. Because we got some feedback that it was really short, both from ourselves and from Rockstar. So this is also kind of the prettiest part of the game in gameplay. There's a lot of nice sprite work, and the background is really nice. So we wanted to make that first section of the game a little larger. So that was kind of the first hurdle. Also, there was a cave entrance on the left side of the map. But it made more sense to kind of put that in the middle so that all the game's levels could be interconnected, which sort of goes into the Metroidvania idea Cam was talking about. Another thing you're going to notice later on is the use of slopes in the first level. There's a lot of diagonal lines. That ended up getting sort of cut halfway through development when we didn't think we wanted slopes because of how annoying it was to program around and make them work correctly. And then we ended up getting those working, but a lot of the levels are still kind of flat. And on the next slide, actually I'll go forward a little bit. So Rockstar said, I don't like it. How the game looks really boxy. You can see on the left, that's a really early draft of a tree level in the game. And then on the right, that's close to what it looks like now. I can't take all the credit. Penn did a great job redoing the texture of the back, and the sprites that Sean and Tori made look great there too. But if you notice the kind of boxiness on the left, it looks like a 3D game almost. That's because it is actually a 3D game. This is all made using Unity's Pro Builder. which is sort of like a 3D modeling tool within Unity used to box out levels. And how I went about fixing that is I basically extruded the front face of all the geometry out and subdivided it, tessellated it to make it a little more rough and natural looking. And it still has generally the same shape and the same collision, which is important because it did play well despite looking like that. But we kind of got the best of both worlds, having kind of sloped, slanty, jagged, natural-looking environments with very boxy, solid level design. And this is the original concept for the tree. It actually stayed pretty much the same. There's a path down below that leads to the cave. And there was a big change in how the quest worked. Originally, you had to go all the way to the top first and then collect a bunch of termites. We dropped that because the level took way too long and there was way too much backtracking. Players were getting bored. So we changed that to just have you collect all the termites first and then go up to the top. The top of the level originally was its own level, and that just turned into the second half of the tree. So that was another challenge, was kind of adapting this to be another part of the tree level instead of its own level. But I was able to keep most of the ideas from it. That's pretty much, really, the big challenge I faced was kind of getting the slopes that I designed the levels around to change into more boxy geometry while looking good. And that's really, I think that turned out pretty well. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have. So, oh, right. So I also did some sprite work and some VFX. I did a couple particle effects, like there's some spores on mushrooms, some falling leaves on the left two screens. Those are really small, so you can't really see them, unfortunately. Little splash effect that I don't think ended up being used. Some controllers for the menus to show players how to play the game. A moon, and some other little nice things to spruce up the environment when I had nothing else to do. So, yeah, I think, Sean?
Hello again. So for Germ, early on, this was kind of before the world was really established as the way it is. I had helped out in creating some early environmental concept art, initially going off of things like deserts. This, I mean, I don't think it was ever really used, right? The desert. I mean, kind of, but oh yeah, it is. That's right. Yeah, that's right. And then I also did some more finalized towards the end for kind of the opening and the ending of the game. Just made some illustrations, conceptualized, you know, the characters together, what they'd be doing, exploring, things like that. And then I also made, split with Tori, a lot of the asset art that is used. Essentially, Tori gave me, I think it was, the first one was like a rock. She said, you know, this is kind of the style that I'm going for. I took that and then pretty much made, you know, I took the rock, made 4 different variants of the rocks, put them in a Google Drive. There's a Trello that was updated pretty much weekly with assets that were needed, and I would just take, you know, if they said we need leaves, I would take that and make 4, 5, 6 different variants of the leaves. Same thing, you know, with these pots that I made. I took those, made a few different versions where, you know, there's chunks taken out of them, they're broken, things like that. So a lot of it is just, you know, even the moss. I think I initially made 2, 3 versions of the moss, and then as level design went on, you know, people said, you know, can we get a few more different variants of moss? Okay, so I think we're up to 11, 12 variants of moss. Tori very graciously told me about a wonderful brush pack that I unfortunately can't remember off the top of my head. Absolute lifesaver. God, no. I think most of this art was made using that brush pack But yeah, that's pretty much all I have. Pen?
Hello, I'm back again. So yes, I was also on this team. I probably did more work for Germinate than I ended up doing for Redo. This slide has a bunch of the concept art that I did for this game with a bunch of characters, like the ones on the left who didn't end up making it in, and then the spider plant character, which the concept was from plants that had died. So this made me think of the spider plant that my parents and I had when I was a kid in our sunroom that didn't make it. I also did almost all the tile textures that are in this game. Like in this slide, some of the ones on the left are like some more of the first ones I did, and then towards the right are like the later ones. I started drawing for this project basically. I'm still a new artist. I started drawing for the pitch for Studio, and then my first time touching like a drawing tablet for more than an hour was this semester basically. So that's been the hardest part for me, is just having to adjust from not doing anything like that to putting out assets that are quality and like being able to match the other artists on the team. And that was a little stressful at first, but I think I got a pretty good flow going eventually. Here's some of the little environment stuff I did for the game. The big statue at the end that Aloe is trapped in the tablet that you need to collect to open it. The golden leaf projectile and stuff, collectible. I also did the animation with the termite, but that's not up here. And then just like Sean, I also did a bunch of credit art basically, and the title graphic for this one as well. So yeah, I think that's all, isn't it?
So we could take some questions, and I'm gonna just play this old video from 3 weeks ago of the game. So.
Yeah. What were your inspirations for designing logos? It looks really impressive, and I love the environmental textures on it.
So when we were coming up with the title, I had the idea of just making it all plants to fit with the theme, and so I tried to make it just a stylized version of how plants could grow while still looking like plants, but also looking like letters, basically.
Nice.
What was it like working in Pro Builder for a 2D game?
I think you can just
It was, yeah, me and Cam can both.
It was actually not as bad as it sounds, because I know Pro Builder to make a 3D but secretly, or no, 2D but secretly 3D game, what is that? But it was actually not that bad, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't know about you.
I loved it because I'm primarily a 3D artist, and I don't really have a ton of experience with 2D games, especially not building out levels. So it was really useful to be able to take a lot of the concepts I know from 3D modeling and apply that to a 2D game.
The reason it's got Pro Builder in it is because the original pitch was 2.5D, and we were going to have a 3D model for all the characters, but then we switched over about halfway, maybe not halfway, a couple weeks in.
I think it was as soon as we saw that 2D animation, we were like, no, all the characters need to be in 2D. Yeah.
I noticed when you were talking about the quest, tracker, that sort of thing, were there big plans that had more than one sort of objective that you're working towards at a time? Or was it just so you could have a to-do list of things that you want the player to do? Because in the game, you're never really working towards more than one goal. So what was the rationale for it?
Yeah, I can kind of answer that a little bit. So the way I designed it was designed initially so that you could set up more than one quest, because we did kind of want to do a little side quest here or there. Obviously, you'll see if you play it, that's not the way it turned out. But it was designed to go forward to create numerous quests. I mean, it's super versatile at what you can do with it. I don't know if that really answers your question, but yeah, like kind of the way it is kind of, we did kind of want it. There was a point where we had there wasn't like a UI for it, right? There was no UI for the quests or anything, and you were just kind of doing things, and like there was just dialogue. And at some point, I had brought up like the idea, to at least. I was like, it might make sense to kind of lead the player around, at least give them, not like, I don't want to give them a laundry list of things to do really. Like that wasn't really the point of it, but it was kind of to be like a directional sort of piece of information, like go to the cave or find your way to the cave, so that at least you know what you're looking for instead of just wandering aimlessly. That was really the point of it, but the way it's designed, it can do just about anything.
Were there? I forgot my question. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What would you say your biggest inspiration for the visual style of the game was?
Ori.
I knew. I knew.
Yeah, when I pitched this game, I was like, I want to make Ori. That's basically it, yeah.
What was your process behind working with not only just one or two composers, but a whole team of sound designers at Berkeley?
So I met with the audio director every 2 weeks, and we would just go through a checklist of stuff. I would give them updates on like any features we're cutting or adding or any like thing needed new sounds for, and then they would essentially just make this huge comprehensive list of like every sound that we needed, if it needed to be a one shot, if it needed to be a loop. And then for music, we kind of planned that out way ahead of time, because the core idea of the game is that the level changes. So the music was just decided to be 2 separate layers. And so they designed some tracks that have like an ambient layer and then a more, I'm probably not thinking of the right word, but like a more musical layer, I guess. And so when you germinate a level, the music kind of swells in, and then it feels more alive, literally.
While we're on the topic of sound, can I mention the voices? I forgot to say that.
Oh yes, we did record voice acting for this game. So the characters that they actually speak, Penn voiced Spinner, and then Cam voiced the tree and Frond and Aloe. Yeah, we all did takes for all the characters.
I thought it was just 2. That's really funny.
Yeah, we did takes for every single character, like all of us did, but when I was implementing it, I needed to make sure one person was responsible for each voice, and some people didn't have enough takes for me to make sure it was a different person. But the whispers in the cave are all of us. And if you guys can figure out how to reverse them, you're surprised.
No, don't say that. Don't tell them.
No.
I just want to say how all the visual elements really complement each other, the backgrounds and textures and landscapes and characters. It really all comes together as a very organic feel. It's really nice.
Less of a question, but more praise. I wanted to bring light to the use of color, which I feel was done really well with using the. I'm sorry, I'm having a part right now. The use of color was really good. Nice use of like contrast-specific colors for doing different things. Use of the purplish to kind of represent the regrown area as opposed to the more somber, less saturated colors of the dead area, so to speak. I just thought that it was really nice use of color, really, and the green, of course, helps pop out, like when the area grows back, as it's being shown now. It really helps bring out more of vibrance of the new of the repo area. So really good use of color theory.
Thank you. I took color theory in art school, and it's one of my favorite things.
Yes, same here.
Yeah.
Are the other characters other than the playable ones? I think the main character is jumping to them now. Are they animated differently? It almost looks like the one on the right is frame-based animation versus the one on the left using bones. Just out of curiosity.
No, they're all done using Unity bones. It might be because Eric did most of the animations for the other characters, and since I iterated on the animations for Spring, they look a lot different.
It's weird to get excited about like an idle animation, but I really like the design of that the other character. There's just something about it. It's very smooth and wavy and I really like it.
I agree.
Did you use the universal render pipeline, and how did you use it?
Yes.
You did.
I don't know what you mean by how, but we just implemented it.
Was it the lighting, shading, like?
Post-processing.
Post-processing maybe
Post-processing.
was what it was for. I think you actually need to use URP for Unity thumbs, but I'm not actually
I
sure.
don't think so.
Oh really? Okay.
No.
Well,
No.
I have no idea, but we use it. I think we just decided on going with URP. I like Universal Render Pipeline, also because shader graph.
Shader graph, yeah.
Yeah.
Compliments came out great. It was really, really nice. I have one question on the visuals look awesome, game was great. On the trailer, the music was great too. It really worked with it. I'm wondering, because you guys did the presentation, I'm not hearing the music with it. How was the music used throughout the game? Because that was really impactful in the trailer.
So that's actually the main title theme. When we told the audio team we wanted music from Ori, they really delivered that with the title theme. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. The other levels have really beautiful themes that have a really nice ambient track. I think the first level reminds me of Skyrim, the way that it sounds, and then when it transitions, it sounds so different because it adds this layer of a different melody over the ambient track. It's basically just having the volume of the second layer kind of come in after the cutscene plays or during the cutscene.
Sort of follow up to that question, is there any chance that the songs in this game will be available on YouTube or SoundCloud or anything like that?
Yeah, I will ask. I have a feeling they'll probably be on Spotify. I really hope, anyways. I know the audio director has a Spotify.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that'd be really cool.
You can definitely tell, through the, before you even said it, I could definitely tell this was inspired by Ori, and just through the visuals and the trailer and everything. That leads me to my question of, you guys are trying to replicate it so well, and you definitely did replicate it to a great extent. But my question is, in what ways were you going to try and differentiate this project from just being another Ori clone, basically?
It doesn't have enemies. I wanted to kind of do one of the reasons it doesn't have enemies is because of scope, but I wanted to kind of see if we could make a game fun with just hazards for a platformer, because the Celeste makes it fun. And also I think the story helps with that. It's a game about family. It's a very chill experience. It's not a stressful game.
Where Ori does have stressful.
It has stressful moments. It has rage moments. It has painful moments. It makes you cry in the first 5 minutes, which couldn't quite get with this game, but I really wish I could have. But yeah.
I'll be first.
Jada was first.
How much content is in the game? How long does it take to beat?
So if you speed run through all of the dialogue and know where absolutely everything is, it takes 15 minutes. If you actually sit through the dialogue and you take your time with it, I think Veronica played it and said took her about 30 minutes. Yeah.
Kind of your first time drawing. Another like weird detail to get oddly excited about, but the background texture for the tree is so good. That looks just right. I'm surprised it's your first time really touching art. It looks very good, especially in that, I believe that's the second level where that texture is used. Really good stuff.
Yeah, I think all the artists on this team are very talented. It's actually insane how much Penn has grown as an artist over this semester.
Oh, yeah.
So big kudos for that.
It's really beautiful. Does not look as much like as a student-made game, but yeah. And that theme music is absolutely beautiful. That was in the trailer.
Yeah.
Which of the early people did that?
I believe that was Lauren. I have the list of like what everyone in Berkeley did somewhere. If you really want to know, I can get it out later. Should we check the stream?
Yeah, is there any
No more
questions?
questions.
I don't see anything. No, the people asking now, I'm curious about the music. Sam Tobin says I don't like it. No specific questions. Somebody, Daily Pecorella says, there's a reason for Trig?
Sorry, but what part in the, I know I was with you guys when you were making it, but where was like the most part of the game where it broke? Like, that question got asked to us, like, what was the most, like, something that just broke completely and you had to overcome it?
There's so many times where that happens.
It's probably a programming thing, right?
Yeah.
Probably saving
no.
it.
I mean, there were so many instances of just, thank God Rockstar for saying something to me about the saving was good and that the framework was good, because so much work went into the framework of the saving and loading. It's a process. And honestly, so many things broke with that, you don't even understand. Like, things would load. Like, you'd save your game, you'd leave, you'd come back, and all of a sudden you can't jump. Or all of a sudden you're, like, flying infinitely. Like things were just out of control at some point. Usually we were able to narrow in the problem. Like, I was able to narrow in the problem and solve it, but it was so tedious because everything else we had to save added another element of just complexity. It was, I knew what the problem was and I could solve it usually within a few minutes, but it was, and then there were just some that were just, I still don't know why they're happening. Cam broke the saving many times, but yeah, that was probably the most challenging. That broke almost all the time. And then there was the player controller. The player controller is another issue. Those two together are probably the two biggest problems, is the saving and the player controller, 100%.
So I wanted to give a couple kudos. Like, well, for starters, yes, both games look really excellent. I did want to point out, we sort of mentioned this in the promotion for this event, but the last meeting with Rockstar, they said these look like real games, right? Which was pretty cool from people with like 20 plus years of experience in the industry to say, yeah, these look like real games. If I saw them on Steam, I would probably buy this one.
Yeah, and that's after they tore them apart for most of their meetings.
Yes. Well, that leads to a question, but I wanted to compliment Germany in particular actually on how you put your slideshow together, because I think some of you guys in particular really nailed talking about your process, and I want to make sure that you kind of replicate that as you are sort of documenting this stuff for your portfolio. So kind of, you know, Tori, Tanner, and Cam, like the way you guys talked about how you put your process together for each of those things, and seeing kind of GIFs or screenshots that showed, you know, how you built systems, or how you built out VFX, or how you went through the narrative process. Really well done. And I just think that's a really good model for some of the rest of you to see as students, to really see how you put this stuff together. So really, like, not just compliments on the game, but also compliments on like the reflectiveness of the process, because that stuff is really important. And we hear this from professionals. We definitely heard it from Rockstar at the last meeting with Rockstar. Make sure that, you know, like that challenge that you encountered, make sure you can talk about that, because that's something they'll ask you in an interview, or did that stuff to put in your portfolio. So kudos on that. And I just wanted to ask you guys, we didn't have time to ask Redo or Big but could you guys could you as a team talk a little bit about what the relationship was with Rockstar, or kind of how Rockstar's feedback helped you evolve your game into what it is?
Sure. I think mainly the feedback with Rockstar was we'd prepare like videos of our game. We'd send them dumps, but mostly they would go off the videos, and we'd kind of just show it off and talk about like what we've done for the past 3 weeks and what we're going to be working on for the next 3 weeks, or however long it was between meetings. And they would just kind of circle stuff on the screen and be like, this looks bad, or you need to like do this. And it'd be stuff that we asked about. Like I think I would consistently ask about the animations, and they'd be like, his cape doesn't move enough, or he sticks to the wall too weird. And that really helped with getting the animations down. And like, it sounds harsh, but you kind of get used to it. And then by the last meeting, we were pleasantly surprised by the compliments that we got.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think it's kind of like you gotta get used to getting put down a lot, and then at the end they kind of bring you up after you're bruised and battered. And yeah, that's kind of how it was. Yeah. I don't know if anyone else wants to comment on it.
I'd like to comment on that.
Yeah.
So, continuing off of what you said, I think that's an important thing with criticism in this field as a whole. Redo talked a little bit about it during the last meeting, but I just want to emphasize it because it's a really good point. Having other people play your games gives you a whole new angle to look at that game from. That's huge. Because we were able to find so many things, both teams were able to find so many things that they didn't even know about, or hadn't even considered until we had those Rockstar meetings, and they brought up like, the UI for Redo, and like that's something that they hadn't even considered. For us, I can't really think of a good specific example.
Other than the blockiness.
Oh yeah, blocking. Yeah, for us, we had the blockiness of the level design, and it's something we didn't really realize was a problem until one of them pointed it out, and we were like, "Oh yeah, whoa, yeah." So
yeah, it was a mixture between the blockiness and there were spikes and like other things that would hurt you that were like the same color as other things that didn't hurt you, so it like didn't make really any sense. It just looked like part of the background, and that was another thing that like.
Making it clear what a hazard
Making
is.
it clear what hurt you, what didn't.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that they said in that first not the pitch meeting, but 3 weeks later when you showed your initial prototypes, and one of the things they said about Germinate was you need to figure out in the next 3 weeks what your game really is about. Right?
No, it was, well, no, we knew what the game was about.
Oh, I guess they said you need to make the game show what it's really about.
Yeah, they said we need a proof of
vertical
concept.
slice
Yeah.
of it.
They wanted to see like all the art already, like in one level within the first 3 weeks, which I remember being very like, what?
Yeah.
That's insane. How do you expect that? Because we wanted to focus on the movement and building the platformer base. So, you know,
Yeah, and we knew
that's how it happens.
yeah, we knew things were going to change with the levels, so we didn't want to start like decorating and making them look all polished until we got feedback on how the levels themselves played. So it was a bit of a disconnect there, but
that was generally their feedback for both groups too.
Yeah.
They said to both groups, like, focus on the first part of your game and make that finished, and then do the rest of it, basically.
If you enter Studio, that is probably 95% the criticism you're going to get from Rockstar. So during that first meeting.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of good advice because we did end up finishing the like overall look of the first level.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty early on, and it really helped build the foundation for the rest of the levels. But that first meeting, I was not happy with the stuff that they said. I was like, no, we just worked our butts off on this, and you're just focusing in on one little thing.
I think 12 of you were not happy, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Well, we're going to the technical issues. Didn't in review they said, wait, you showed us one level, you're planning 3 more? Are you nuts?
Yeah, they said that, yeah.
We weren't opposed to them saying that. I think it was the second meeting, where they were like, thanks for sticking to one level, but you extended the level more. Are we supposed to play this level for like 2 minutes? Like, but yeah.
Yeah, I think at one point they told us to just make the whole game the boss room.
Yeah.
There was, I remember that.
They kind of told us to just have one level too, and I was like,
Yeah, we
our
didn't
first
listen.
level is so
It's
short.
so boring.
There's no way.
yeah, so we made the first level longer, and then we added 2 more on top of it.
Yeah.
But it still came out good. So
Sometimes you don't have to take the criticism.
Yeah. I think one of the most impressive things, I think, for both teams is just like seeing how much you guys were just, you know, the kind of rigor that you went through, and you really kind of, you know, there were times definitely, like we were just talking about, where you were kind of discouraged and really stressed out, but you really kind of stuck it out and adjusted, and yeah, I mean, just watching that whole experience, and I think watching how you guys have all grown, both teams, is just really, really impressive, and just, you know, remember what you were able to kind of go through and come away with, so.
The slides for both teams really rock. They're great.
thank you.
All right, well, let's have a big round of applause for both teams. As promised, now that you've finished all the trials, there will be cake.
Yay!
Yeah,
Cake is alive!
We have one thing. We are making T-shirts with this art. If anyone wants a T-shirt, please come see me or Tanner.
They're
It's-
really cool. The more people we get to buy it, the cheaper the T-shirt will be.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
right now, there's like 14 people interested, so that brings the T-shirt price to like $22 per shirt. So
They're limited edition.
if we get like
Yes.
30 plus, then each T-shirt will be like less than $15.
Marketing.